My son and his wife left for a trip and asked me to stay behind to care for her mother, a woman everyone said was in a coma after a terrible accident. Before I continue, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share where you're watching from in the comments. It truly helps these stories reach more people, and trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end of this one. Now let me take you back to that day. I'm 62 years old, and I never imagined that agreeing to help my own family would place me inside the most frightening situation of my life. When my son called me that Monday afternoon, I was sitting at my kitchen table, sorting through mail I didn't really care about. Bills, advertisements, the quiet, ordinary things that fill time when you live alone. His name lit up my phone, and like it always does, my heart lifted a little. "Hi, Mom," he said. His voice sounded careful, polite, almost distant. Not the voice of a boy calling his mother, more like a man handling a responsibility. "Hi, sweetheart," I replied. "What's going on?" There was a pause, not long, but long enough for something to tighten in my chest. "Vanessa and I need to leave town for a few days," he said. "Work stuff, important meetings." I waited. I've learned over the years that when someone starts slow, they're working up to something. "And her mom," he added. "She can't be left alone." I already knew who he meant. Vanessa's mother had been living in their house for months. Everyone said she'd fallen down the stairs at her apartment and hit her head badly. Brain injury, long hospital stay, then home care, a coma. At least that's what I'd been told. "The nurse comes in the morning and evening," my son continued, "but we really need someone there in between, just in case." Just in case. I should have asked why. I should have wondered why they didn't hire full-time help. I should have noticed how carefully he chose his words, but instead I heard something I hadn't heard from him in a very long time. "Need." "Of course," I said. "I'll come." The relief in his voice came instantly. "Thank you, Mom," he said. "It means a lot." Those words mattered more to me than I realized at the time. My son and I were never especially close. Even as a child, he wasn't the hugging type. He kept his emotions tucked away, and I learned not to push. When he married Vanessa 2 years ago, that distance grew wider. Polite visits, short conversations, smiles that never quite reached her eyes. So when he asked me for help, when he trusted me with something important, it felt like a bridge being rebuilt. I packed a small suitcase the next morning. Nothing fancy, comfortable clothes, my slippers, a book I'd already read twice. I told myself I was just going to help, that's all. Their house was across town. Big, beautiful. Quiet in a way that always made me feel like I had to lower my voice just to breathe. Vanessa opened the door when I arrived, smiling warmly. "Thank you so much for coming," she said. "Mom's been very still lately." Still. That word stuck with me. She led me down the hallway toward the spare bedroom. As we walked, she talked about flight times, meetings, delays, all the ordinary things people talk about when they're nervous. The room was dim. Machines hummed softly. A hospital bed sat in the center like it didn't belong in a house at all. Her mother lay there, pale and unmoving, tubes, monitors, a faint rhythmic beep filling the silence. "She hasn't moved in months," Vanessa whispered. "Doctors say she probably doesn't even know what's happening anymore." I nodded, even though something about the way she said it made my skin prickle. My son kissed my cheek quickly, already checking his watch. "We'll call later," he said. "Everything you need is written down." Then they were gone. The door closed behind them, and the house became so quiet it almost felt loud. I stood there for a moment, alone, listening to the machines down the hall. I didn't know it yet, but that silence was the last moment of peace I would have for a very long time. I stayed standing there long after the door closed, listening to the silence settle into the walls. It wasn't peaceful silence. It was the kind that presses against your ears until you become painfully aware of your own breathing. I told myself to relax. I was just helping family, just keeping watch, just being useful. I walked back down the hallway toward the spare bedroom, my footsteps sounding louder than they should have on the polished floor. The machines continued their steady rhythm, blinking softly in the dim light. I stood beside the bed again and looked at her, Vanessa's mother. Her face was calm, almost serene, too serene. Like someone pretending to sleep rather than someone truly unconscious. I reached for the blanket to straighten it, telling myself I was being silly, nervous, overthinking. That's when I noticed it. Her fingers twitched, just barely. So small I almost convinced myself I imagined it. My heart skipped. I leaned closer, watching her chest rise and fall. "Hello," I whispered, feeling foolish. "Can you hear me?" Nothing. I laughed quietly under my breath, embarrassed with myself. Of course she couldn't hear me. Everyone said she'd been like this for months. I reached out and gently placed my hand on her arm. That's when her hand snapped around my wrist. Not weak, not confused, strong, I gasped and stumbled back so hard I nearly lost my balance. Her eyes flew open. Wide, alert, green and sharp like they'd been waiting for me. I froze. Every single thought left my head at once. "Thank goodness," she whispered hoarsely. "You're finally here." The room tilted. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might faint right there beside the bed. You're awake," I finally stammered. She tightened her grip on my wrist, her fingers digging in like she was afraid I'd disappear. "They just left, didn't they?" she asked urgently. I nodded, still unable to process what I was seeing. "They're gone," I whispered. "They said you were in a coma." She let out a sound that wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite a sob. "A coma," she murmured bitterly. "That's what they want everyone to believe." My knees went weak. I pulled a chair closer and sat down hard, my legs barely holding me. You're talking," I said. "The doctors said." "The doctors were lied to," she interrupted. "Just like you were." She tried to push herself up and winced in pain. "Please," she said, "help me sit up. I've been pretending to be asleep for so long my whole body feels like it's breaking." My hands shook as I arranged pillows behind her, my mind racing faster than my heart. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would they lie about this?" She stared at me, her eyes filling with tears, but her voice stayed steady. "Because they're poisoning me." The word hit me like ice water. "What?" I breathed. "Every day," she said quietly. "Sometimes twice. Injections, pills crushed into my feeding line, drugs strong enough to knock out a healthy adult." I felt sick. "That's impossible," I said weakly. "Why would my son—" "Because they're stealing everything I own," she said. "And they need me silent." My stomach dropped. She squeezed my hand again, grounding me. "They think I'm helpless," she continued. "They think I can't hear, so they talk freely around me about money, about paperwork. About timing." I swallowed hard. "What kind of money?" "All of it," she said. "My savings, my retirement, my house. They moved hundreds of thousands of dollars while I lay here pretending not to exist." My ears rang. "No," I whispered. "He wouldn't do that. He's my son." She looked at me with something like pity. "Margaret," she said softly, "the son you remember isn't the man standing in that hallway." The words hurt more than I expected. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "This doesn't make sense," I said. "Why would they ask me to come here?" Her expression darkened. "Because they need a witness." My chest tightened. "A witness for what?" She leaned closer, her voice barely louder than the machine's. "For my death." The room seemed to shrink around me. "They plan to let me naturally decline," she continued. Slowly, carefully. "So no one questions it?" I couldn't breathe. "And you," she added, her gaze locking onto mine, "are meant to tell everyone how peaceful it was." The meaning slammed into me all at once. They hadn't asked me to help. They had asked me to lie. "They're using me," I whispered. She nodded. "And if you weren't here," she said, "they'd have no one to vouch for their story." I stood up and paced to the window, staring out at a perfectly normal neighborhood. Cars passed, birds chirped. How could something this evil exist behind walls so quiet? "What do we do?" I asked, my voice trembling. She looked at me with a strength I didn't expect from someone who'd been drugged and trapped for months. "We don't panic," she said. "We don't confront them." I turned back to her. "Then what?" She smiled faintly. "We let them think they're winning." A chill ran through me. "They trust you," she continued. "They think you're exactly what you've always been, kind, lonely, and unsuspecting." That hurt, because it was true. "And that," she said, squeezing my hand, "is how we take them down." I stared at her, my heart racing between terror and something else. Determination? I had spent my whole life avoiding conflict, making excuses, believing the best. But sitting there beside a woman everyone thought was unconscious, listening to the truth about my own son, something inside me snapped. "Tell me everything," I said, and she did. And by the time she finished, I knew one thing for certain. I sat back down slowly, my legs feeling weak, my mind spinning. "Start from the beginning," I said. "I need to understand everything." She nodded, as if she'd been waiting months for someone to finally ask her that. "The fall was real," she began quietly. I did fall down the stairs, I did hit my head. I won't lie about that. My stomach tightened. For the first few days in the hospital, I really was unconscious, she continued. Confused when I woke up, weak, scared. I leaned forward listening. But then I started getting better, she said. Slowly, I could answer questions, I could recognize people, doctors talked about therapy, about recovery. She paused, her jaw tightening. That's when everything changed. I felt a chill run through me. She told the doctors I was getting worse, she said, that I was aggressive, that I was confused, that I didn't recognize her anymore. Vanessa, I asked. She nodded once. She cried in front of them, she continued. Said she was exhausted, that she was scared I'd hurt myself or someone else. I clenched my fists. And your daughter, my son, I corrected myself carefully. He backed her up. Yes, she said without hesitation. Every word. My heart sank. He told them I was unpredictable, she said, that I'd scream, that I'd try to pull tubes out, that I'd lash out. Her voice shook slightly. I never did any of that. I believed her. So the doctors prescribed calming medication, she went on. At first it was mild, something to take the edge off. She swallowed. But Vanessa kept saying it wasn't working. I felt sick. She pushed for stronger doses, she said. Told them I was getting dangerous, that she was afraid to sleep. Her eyes met mine. And when the medicine still didn't fully knock me out, she took matters into her own hands. My breath caught. She started injecting things herself, she whispered. Drugs that weren't prescribed, things that made my body heavy, my mind foggy. My hands trembled. Where would she even get? She used to work in elder care, she said. Before she met your son, that explained far too much. They brought me here after that, she continued. Out of the hospital, said it was better for family care. She gave a bitter laugh. Once I was in this house, everything became easy for them. I looked around the room, the machines, the bed, the quiet. They said I was in a coma, she said. So no one questioned why I couldn't speak or move. Or object, my chest ached. And the money? I asked, her eyes hardened. That started almost immediately, she said. Small transfers at first, testing the waters. She looked down at her hands. Then bigger ones, retirement accounts. Savings? I felt dizzy. They forged my signature, she said. Practiced it? I closed my eyes. How much? I whispered. She hesitated. Almost $500,000, she said. I gasped. And my house, she added. They're selling it. I couldn't sit still. I stood and paced the room, anger flooding through me like fire. And the nurse? I asked suddenly. The one who comes twice a day. She doesn't know, she said quickly. She's real, kind. Careful? That somehow made it worse. Vanessa times the drugs, she continued. Gives me heavier doses right before the nurse arrives, so I look completely unresponsive. My stomach twisted. She's been planning this, I whispered. For months, she said, carefully. I stopped pacing. And the trip, I said slowly. Why now? Her gaze locked onto mine. Because they're ready for the final step. My heart slammed against my ribs. They don't want this to drag on, she said. They've already talked about vacations, about what they'll do when it's over. I shook my head, unable to accept it. They can't just, they can, she said quietly. And they think they will. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. They talked about letting my body naturally fail, about slowly increasing doses until my breathing stops. I felt tears spill over. They want it to look peaceful, she added. Expected? I covered my mouth. And me? I asked. Her expression softened, but her words didn't. You're meant to confirm it, she said, that I never woke up, that I never spoke. That I just faded away. The room went silent again, except this time it wasn't empty silence. It was loaded. They think you're safe, she continued. Predictable, loving, loyal. That hurt more than anything else she'd said. They think you'll protect your son, she said gently, no matter what. I sank back into the chair, my entire body shaking. I don't know if I can do this, I whispered. She reached for my hand. You already are, she said, by listening. By believing me? I looked at her, really looked at her, not a patient, not a victim, a survivor. What do you need from me? I asked, her eyes sharpened. I need you to help me gather proof, she said. Real proof. I swallowed. And when they come back, she held my gaze steadily. We let them think nothing has changed. A long pause, until it's too late for them. My heart pounded. I nodded, because deep down I knew something had changed forever. And there was no going back. Once the shock settled, fear didn't disappear. It sharpened. I realized something terrifying that made my throat go dry. I couldn't act scared. Not even a little. If they noticed even the smallest change in me, everything would collapse. And if everything collapsed too soon, Patricia wouldn't survive it. So I took a deep breath, smoothed my face, and became exactly who they expected me to be: the helpful mother, the grateful guest, the woman who never questions her son. I stayed close to Patricia's room, but only in ways that looked normal. I spoke softly. I moved carefully. I never lingered too long. Inside, though, every sound felt louder, every floorboard creak, every car passing outside, every vibration of my phone. Patricia rested quietly, her eyes closed again, her body completely still, but when I reached for her hand, she squeezed once. Light, controlled. She was awake, alert, waiting. The first real test came that evening. The nurse arrived right on time, cheerful and professional, carrying her medical bag like she'd done hundreds of times before. "Good evening," she said kindly. "How has she been today?" "Very peaceful," I replied, forcing my voice to stay steady. The nurse checked the monitors, listened to breathing, noted numbers on her chart. "She's stable," she said. "No major changes." I felt a wave of relief and then guilt, because I knew why she looked stable, because someone else was carefully controlling how and when she appeared that way. After the nurse left, I locked myself in the bathroom and stared at my reflection. My hands were shaking. "Pull it together," I whispered. "You have to survive this." That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined footsteps outside my door. Imagined my son standing there, realizing I knew too much. Morning came too quickly. I made coffee, toast. Normal breakfast sounds filling a house that now felt like a crime scene. When I went back into Patricia's room, she opened her eyes just enough to look at me. "They'll be back soon," she whispered. "When?" I asked. "Tomorrow night," she said. "They texted while you were sleeping." My stomach clenched. That gave us one full day. "We need proof," I whispered. "Something undeniable." Patricia nodded. "They keep everything," she said. "Paperwork, medication logs. Financial records." "Where?" "In the house," she said. "They're arrogant. They think no one would ever look." So we did. Slowly, carefully, only when we were certain no one was watching. I checked drawers, closets, filing cabinets. And what I found made my blood run cold. Folders with forged signatures, printed bank statements showing massive transfers, prescription bottles that didn't match any doctor's instructions. I took photos of everything. My phone filled with evidence, quiet, damning proof of what they'd done. Then Patricia told me something that nearly broke me. "They talk when they think I'm asleep," she said softly. "About you." I froze. "What do you mean?" "They trust you," she said. "They think you're harmless." That hurt more than I expected. "They said you'd never suspect them," she continued. "That you'd do whatever they asked because you need family." Tears burned my eyes. "And the worst part," she added, "I waited. They plan to keep you close," she said, "after it's over." A chill ran through me. "They don't just need a witness," she said. "They need control." I realized then that this wasn't just about Patricia. It was about me too. That night, as I sat alone in the guest room, I heard a text notification. "My son, flight lands tomorrow evening. Thank you again for everything, Mom." I stared at the message. Tomorrow, they were coming back. And when they did, the house would no longer be quiet. The sound of the garage door opening felt like a gunshot in my chest. I was standing in the kitchen, pretending to rinse the same coffee cup for the third time when I heard the car pull in. Tires on concrete. An engine shutting off, doors opening and closing. They were home. I wiped my hands on a towel and forced my shoulders to relax. This was the moment everything changed. A second later, the front door opened, and I heard Vanessa's voice, bright, cheerful, practiced. "We're back." Her tone was so normal it made my skin crawl. I stepped into the hallway just as they came in, dragging their suitcases behind them. Vanessa looked perfectly put together. Fresh hair, light makeup, a soft sweater like she'd just returned from a weekend getaway instead of abandoning her supposedly dying mother. My son smiled when he saw me. "There's my favorite caregiver," he said, opening his arms for a hug. I stepped into it automatically, though every part of me wanted to pull away. "You did great, Mom," he murmured. "I knew we could count on you." Those words almost broke me. Vanessa's eyes went straight past me toward the hallway. "How is she?" she asked quickly. Stable, I said. The nurse came as usual. No major changes. I watched her closely. For just a second, just one relief flickered across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by that careful concern she wore so well. That's good, she said softly. But these things can turn very suddenly. Yes, they can, I thought. They set their bags down and walked straight to Patricia's room. I followed, my heart pounding. Vanessa leaned over the bed, touching her mother's forehead gently. Hi, Mom, she whispered sweetly. We're home. Patricia didn't move, didn't react. Perfect. Vanessa turned to me. She hasn't woken up at all? No, I said evenly. Not once. My son nodded, satisfied. She's fading, he said quietly. I can feel it. The way he said it, calm, almost relieved, made my stomach turn. Vanessa glanced at the machines, then at her watch. I'll need to adjust her medications tonight, she said. Being gone always throws her off. Of course it does. Dinner was tense. They ordered takeout and ate at the table like nothing was wrong. Vanessa talked about delayed flights. My son complained about airport coffee. They laughed. They joked. They planned, at least we'll finally be able to rest after all this, Vanessa said casually, sipping her drink. Once it's over. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Over? I asked quietly. She smiled. You know what I mean, she said gently. After Mom passes. She said it like she was talking about bad weather. My son nodded. It's been so hard on Vanessa, he added. She deserves peace. I looked at him, at the boy I raised, at the man he became, and I realized something terrifying. He didn't see this as murder. He saw it as an inconvenience being resolved. Later that evening, Vanessa prepared the medications. I watched from the doorway as she lined up syringes and bottles with practiced hands. This might be a good learning moment for you, she said, glancing at me. In case you ever need to help again, help kill her. How long does it take to work? I asked, forcing curiosity into my voice. Not long, she replied. 15 minutes, maybe less. She administered the injection calmly, efficiently, like someone watering a plant. Then she stepped back and sighed. Poor Mom, she murmured. She's been gone for a long time already. My son put his arm around her. You did everything you could. I clenched my hands behind my back. That night they sat me down in the living room. It wasn't an accident, it wasn't casual, it was deliberate. We need to talk, my son said. Vanessa closed the curtains, locked the door, my pulse spiked. Mom, he said gently, you've been here, you've seen how bad things are. I nodded. Yes. When things change, Vanessa added softly, we'll need your help explaining what happened. My heart pounded. Explaining to who? To anyone who asks, my son said. Doctors, police, insurance people. Vanessa leaned forward, her eyes cold now. You'll tell them she never woke up, she said, that she was peaceful, that we did everything possible. I swallowed hard. And if I don't? I asked quietly. The room went very still. My son sighed like I was being difficult. Mom, he said, you're older, you live alone, accidents happen. Vanessa smiled. We'd hate for anything unfortunate to happen to you. The threat hung in the air, heavy and unmistakable. I nodded slowly. I understand, I said, and I meant it, just not the way they thought. Because while they believed they were finally in control, they had no idea what was already listening. I didn't sleep. Every creak of the house made my heart jump. Every distant sound felt like a warning. I lay there in the guest room staring at the ceiling, replaying my son's words over and over. Accidents happen. By morning, fear had burned itself into something harder. Focus. If I was going to survive this, if Patricia was going to survive, I had to stay calm, careful, invisible. At dawn, I heard movement down the hall. Soft footsteps. Cabinet doors opening, the quiet clink of glass. Vanessa was already awake. I slipped out of bed and walked toward the kitchen, forcing myself to look groggy and harmless. Morning, I said gently. She turned, startled for half a second before smiling. Oh, good morning. Did you sleep at all? Some, I lied. I kept thinking about your mom. Her smile tightened. That's understandable, she said. These final stages are always the hardest. Final stages? She said it like a nurse, like a professional. Not like a daughter. My son entered a few moments later, already dressed, coffee in hand. We should start preparing, he said quietly. For what? I asked. He hesitated, then decided there was no point pretending anymore. For when things happen, he said. We want to be ready. Vanessa nodded. I'll start documenting changes today, she added. It's important to have a clear timeline. I followed them into Patricia's room. She lay perfectly still, pale, peaceful, exactly how they wanted her. Vanessa checked the monitors, making notes on a clipboard. Breathing is more shallow, she said. Heart rate irregular. She looked at me. You see that too, right? This was it. This was where they needed me. Yes, I said softly. It looks worse than yesterday. She smiled. Good, they trusted me. They spent the rest of the morning building their story, phone calls to doctors, concerned sighs, carefully worded messages to distant relatives. By noon, the house felt like a stage, and we were all playing roles. After lunch, Vanessa asked me to sit with her in the living room. I want to make sure we're all on the same page, she said gently. My son stood behind her, arms crossed. We need you to remember things clearly, he said. If anyone asks, I nodded. She never woke up, Vanessa said. She never spoke, I understand. And she declined quickly, my son added. Naturally, yes. Vanessa leaned forward, lowering her voice. We trusted you for a reason, she said. Your family. The word felt poisonous. Tonight, she continued, I'll increase the dosage. It should end things peacefully. My breath caught, but I didn't let it show. And you'll be here, my son said. You'll see how we tried everything. I looked at Patricia, still, silent. Listening, I'll be here, I said. That evening, everything slowed down. Vanessa prepared the medications carefully, more carefully than ever before. This one will help her rest, she said, deeply. She didn't know how much we were listening. Because hidden in the room, tucked behind furniture, inside vents, beneath drawers, were small recording devices capturing every word. And then finally they made their mistake. They talked, not in whispers, not cautiously, but confidently. She won't last through the night, Vanessa said quietly as she prepared the syringe. Good, my son replied. I'm exhausted. I felt something inside me snap. All that money, he continued. Finally worth it. Vanessa laughed. Worth every second, she said. She never even knew. I stepped closer, pretending concern. Do you think she's suffering? I asked. Vanessa shook her head. No, she said casually. She's barely aware anymore. Then she leaned closer to my son and said the words that sealed their fate. By morning, she whispered, we'll be free. Free. The room felt cold. That was the moment I knew they were done, and so were we. The house felt different after that, heavier, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Vanessa moved with quiet confidence, preparing what she called the final adjustment. She was calm, almost relaxed, as if a long-delayed chore was finally nearing completion. My son poured himself a drink and leaned against the counter. We should get some rest, he said. Big day tomorrow. Tomorrow. The word echoed in my head. I stayed close to Patricia's room, sitting in the chair beside her bed, my hands folded neatly in my lap. To anyone watching, I was the devoted, frightened mother-in-law keeping vigil. But beneath the calm, my heart was racing. Patricia's fingers brushed mine just once. She was ready. Around midnight, Vanessa entered the room with the syringe. This is it, she said softly. After this, we just wait. She smiled, not sadly, not gently, but with relief. I stood up. Can I say goodbye first? I asked. They both looked at me. Vanessa hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. Of course, she said. That's very human of you. I leaned over Patricia, my face close to hers. I'm here, I whispered, loud enough for the microphone hidden in the lamp to catch every word. Then I said the one thing we had agreed on. Now, Patricia's eyes flew open. Vanessa screamed. The syringe clattered to the floor. My son staggered backward like he'd been struck. What is this? He stammered. You're supposed to be unconscious, Patricia said clearly, pushing herself upright. Confused, helpless. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. I've heard everything. Vanessa's face drained of color. That's impossible, she whispered. You can't, you're brain damaged. Patricia laughed. Oh, sweetheart, she said coldly. You should know by now you were never as smart as you thought. My son found his voice. Mom, he turned to me desperately. What's going on? I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt something inside me finally break free. You threatened me, I said quietly. You planned to kill her. And you thought I'd help you lie about it. Vanessa shook her head wildly. She's confused. This is one of her episodes. Patricia reached over and pressed a button on the small device beside the bed. The room filled with sound. Their voices clear. Calm, cruel, Patricia is going to die this week. By morning, we'll be free. She never even knew. Vanessa collapsed into a chair. My son's mouth opened, but no sound came out. You recorded us, Vanessa whispered. Yes, Patricia said, for months. She looked straight at my son, and your mother helped me finish it. At that moment, red and blue lights flashed through the windows. A loud knock shook the front door. Police, open up. Vanessa began to cry. My son sank to his knees. As officers poured into the house, handcuffs clicking, the silence finally broke, not with fear, but with truth. And as they were led away, my son looked back at me. Mom, he said, please? I didn't answer. Because some choices can't be undone. The house was quiet again. But this time, it wasn't the heavy, threatening silence that had wrapped itself around me days earlier. This silence felt clean. The police cars were gone. The flashing lights had faded. The neighbors had retreated back into their homes, whispering behind curtains, trying to make sense of what they'd just witnessed. I sat at the kitchen table, my hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. Across from me, Patricia sat upright for the first time without machines humming beside her. She looked alive, not just breathing, alive. I still can't believe it's over, I said quietly. Patricia nodded slowly. I can. She reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. I've imagined this moment every single day for months. The officers had explained everything clearly. The recordings, the financial trail, the forged documents. The drugs, there was no ambiguity, no room for excuses. My son and his wife hadn't just crossed a line, they had built their lives on the wrong side of it. They asked me if I wanted to see him, I said, staring down into my cup. Patricia didn't interrupt. I said no. The word surprised even me with how firm it sounded. I thought I'd feel guilt, I continued, or grief, or something sharp and unbearable. I exhaled slowly. But all I felt was relief. Patricia nodded again. That doesn't make you heartless. I know, I said, it makes me honest. Later that day, a doctor arrived, a real one this time. No whispers, no lies. He examined Patricia carefully, reviewed everything, and then looked at her with quiet amazement. You're stronger than anyone gave you credit for, he said. She smiled faintly. That seems to be a theme. They removed the IV lines, disconnected the monitors, opened the windows. Sunlight spilled into the room where darkness had lived for far too long. As evening settled in, Patricia packed a small bag. I'm not staying here another night, she said firmly. This house has too many ghosts. I don't blame you, I replied. She hesitated at the door. You could come with me, she said gently. Just for a while, you shouldn't be alone after everything. I thought about it. About the life I'd lived before all this, about how much I'd accepted, about how often I'd stayed quiet to keep the peace. I think, I said slowly, it's time I stopped staying where I'm not safe. She smiled. Weeks later, the court dates began, charges stacked high. Sentences discussed in numbers that made my head spin. Fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy. The truth didn't whisper anymore, it spoke loudly. And as for me, I learned something I wish I'd learned much earlier in life. Being a mother doesn't mean sacrificing your conscience. Loving someone doesn't mean protecting their lies. And family, real family, doesn't ask you to betray yourself. I'm still 62, but I don't feel old anymore. I feel awake. If this story stirred something in you, if it reminded you of a moment you ignored your instincts, I want you to remember this. Silence protects the wrong people. Truth protects you. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Please like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And remember, it's never too late to open your eyes.